Spartacus. The name itself feels like a battle cry, doesn't it? It's a name that has echoed through history for over 2,000 years, symbolizing rebellion, freedom, and the unbreakable human spirit. But who was Spartacus, really? Was he just a man who led a group of desperate slaves, or was he something far more? Today, we're diving into the story of Spartacus, the rebel gladiator who defied Rome. Let's start with what little we know about his origins because, surprisingly, history doesn't give us much. Spartacus was believed to have been born in Thrace, a region that roughly corresponds to modern-day Bulgaria, parts of Greece and Turkey. He may have been a soldier in the Thracian army, fighting for his homeland before being captured and sold into slavery by the Romans. Imagine that, being a free man one day and then shackled the next, dragged away to a life of servitude in a foreign land. As a slave, Spartacus ended up in one of the worst places you could imagine in ancient Rome, a gladiator training school. These schools weren't just gyms, they were brutal, violent places where men were trained to fight to the death for the entertainment of Roman crowds. Spartacus was sent to one in Capua, a city near Naples, where he was trained to wield weapons and kill for sport. But Spartacus wasn't the type to accept his fate quietly. He didn't want to die in an arena, and he certainly didn't want to die a slave. In 73 BCE, Spartacus and about 70 other gladiators decided they'd had enough. Armed with kitchen knives, makeshift weapons, and sheer determination, they fought their way out of the training school and escaped. That escape could have been the end of the story. A small group of runaway slaves hunted down by Roman authorities, but Spartacus was no ordinary man. He wasn't just running for freedom, he was about to start a rebellion that would shake the Roman Empire to its core. Once free, Spartacus and his band of gladiators began attracting other runaway slaves as well as peasants and disenfranchised people who were fed up with Rome's brutal system. It wasn't long before Spartacus had an army, a massive, growing force of men and women who were united by one thing, their hatred of Rome. This wasn't just a band of outlaws, it was the beginnings of a full-scale revolution. Spartacus proved to be a brilliant leader and strategist. Despite having no formal military training, he used his experience as a gladiator and his understanding of Roman tactics to outwit and outmaneuver the Roman forces sent to capture him. His army scored victory after victory, defeating smaller Roman units and even looting Roman towns. At one point, Spartacus's army grew to over 70,000 people. That's not just a rebellion, that's a movement. The rebellion, known as the Third Servile War, raged on for 2 years. During that time, Spartacus's army roamed across southern Italy, defeating Roman legions and spreading fear throughout the empire. But Spartacus wasn't just fighting to destroy Rome. Some historians believe his ultimate goal was to lead his people out of Italy entirely, possibly to return to their homelands. At one point, his army even reached the Alps. They could have crossed over into freedom, leaving Rome behind forever. But for reasons we can only speculate about, whether it was the allure of continued rebellion or internal disagreements, Spartacus chose to stay and fight. Rome, of course, couldn't let this rebellion continue. The Senate sent one of its most ruthless generals, Marcus Licinius Crassus, to deal with Spartacus once and for all. Crassus wasn't just any general, he was one of the wealthiest men in Roman history and was determined to end the rebellion. He raised a massive army and pursued Spartacus relentlessly. The final confrontation came in 71 BCE in what is now southern Italy. Spartacus's forces, though still formidable, were outnumbered and outmatched by Crassus's disciplined legions. In a desperate final battle, Spartacus fought bravely, reportedly charging straight into the thick of the Roman lines in a last-ditch attempt to kill Crassus himself. He was ultimately killed, though his body was never definitively identified. The rebellion was crushed. But Rome wasn't content with just defeating Spartacus. They wanted to send a message to anyone who might dare to rise up again. In a display of sheer cruelty, Crassus ordered the crucifixion of over 6,000 captured rebels along the Appian Way, the main road leading to Rome. For miles, the roads were lined with the bodies of Spartacus's followers, a grim reminder of Rome's power. And yet, Despite his defeat, Spartacus became a legend. His rebellion, though ultimately unsuccessful, exposed the cracks in Rome's seemingly invincible empire. It showed that even the mighty Romans could be challenged and that the human desire for freedom could not be easily extinguished. Over the centuries, Spartacus's story has been retold countless times. From ancient historians to modern films and books, he has become a symbol of resistance against oppression, a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming odds, one person can inspire change. What's remarkable about Spartacus is not just what he did, but what he stood for. He wasn't born into greatness. He wasn't a king or a nobleman. He was a slave, a gladiator, a man who dared to believe that he, and others like him, deserved more. His story is a testament to the power of courage, unity, and the unyielding human spirit.